Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of A Coffee with Chris, the social media show that helps you create impact. As always, brought to you in association with our charity partners, 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗄, who help local people affected by cancer, and Game Plan Coffee, Paddy and Scott's special coffee partnership with the High Performance Foundation. Every single bag of this glorious, might I say, coffee that you buy helps them support the work of the High Performance Foundation, funding programs that help young people across the UK develop the mindset and tools to thrive in life, not just survive it. So if you are like me, literally on cue, and love your coffee and you believe in giving young people a fair shot at their own high performance, grab yourself a bag of Game Plan Coffee today. The links are everywhere across our socials. Of course, as always, this podcast is also sponsored by Oliver Hill from Hill Coaching Company, Gemma Crane from Mindset HR, and Callum Howard from Limitless Film and Media. Let's welcome today's guest. I'm really, really excited to be speaking with him today. It's the founder of Motion Wave Digital, Connor Whiting. Motion Wave Digital, for those of you that don't know, help businesses treat brand as their operating system, aligning strategy, positioning, and marketing to build trust, clarity, and, I love this part, commercial impact. Connor, you are a fascinating guest because of your backstory. And I want to go into the why to kick things off. You've come from an environment where trust is literally survival. Why do you believe trust is such a critical part of business today? And why are so many businesses struggling to build it? Oh, and please tell us your backstory as well.
I'll start with my backstory then. So I was a Royal Navy clearance diver. And what that means is that underwater bomb disposal, essentially. So everything from like World War II bombs to sort of, without going into politics, what's going out on the Straits of Hormuz. Most of my time was actually spent in that sort of operating area, making sure that what was happening didn't happen, but it was way out of our control anyway. But trust for us in our small teams was vital. We operated as small diving teams, 4-man teams, but the support team could have been 40 lads. The ship, the 𝗄𝗶𝗁, everyone was coordinating together to actually get the mission done. Take from just getting rid of a World War II bomb. You're going to have the police involved, potentially the Coast Guard. There's going to be areas cordoned off. There's going to be a render safe procedure, and then you're actually going to go down to the mine itself and get rid of it. There's a lot of communication and trusting everyone to do their job, no matter how big or small, because everyone had a role to play. It wasn't just the operator going down. It could have been the police officer just stopping Sammy the dog walker walking down the beach to an old GD bomb. Equally as important, and that required trust at all levels to achieve the mission output.
And by the way, it's incredible, and I applaud you for your work. I really do. How does this link to business and brand, Connor? You put out an amazing LinkedIn post about this, which is exactly why I wanted to get you on this podcast. And critically here, why do businesses struggle to build that trust that you know so well about?
So I think coming from our background, especially with the British Armed Forces, let's face it, and I think this is across the whole government sectors, chronically underfunded. So that meant that quite often that our equipment wasn't actually capable of doing the job. The link here is that a lot of small businesses don't have the marketing spend that the big national is going to have. But that didn't stop the mission from changing. You still had to get the job done. The end goal was still get rid of that bomb, render it safe, open up a shipping passage. Didn't matter if you had a 500 grand robot doing it, or as we would do it, good old
humans.
It's going down on a bit of string. And the principle is still the same. So that logic there of problem solving then translate into like marketing and business. I always had like a natural interest in marketing and business. And backstory, I grew up in Ipswich, didn't come from a wealthy background, but the idea of investing and how to accumulate wealth, it just stuck in my mind. So that same logic of learning how to read financial graphs, how to like see where value is going to compound in the future, helped me make financial decisions. marketing was just about learning the tactics. I learned, okay, so SEO does this. This is how someone gets found on Google. Branding is how someone sees the company from an outward perspective. Paid ads is how we reach an audience that organic might not be able to reach at a moment. So essentially, it was just putting them little puzzle pieces together to connect it into a strategy on how do we get to that final projected value? How do we actually get there? And so that's where I started doing that. And I just started putting the puzzle pieces together. And that's essentially what we do as Royal Navy clearance divers. We just fix the puzzle to get to the end goal. It was never simple, just yeah.
Of course, I just I love the link. It's incredible, and the skill transfer there is remarkable, Connor. Yeah. And the whole reason why you're really kind of you're really clicking with me, Connor, is this word impact that you use a lot. And our tagline is purposeful social media that creates impact, right? I'm big into that. Yeah. And so I kind of want to go to you on like the starting steps to creating impact, because so many businesses are spending so much marketing budget on all sorts of activities without knowing, understanding how they get to the outcome, impact, sales, making more money. How does a business kind of get on the right starting steps with that?
I step out. So before I look at the tactics, the social media, SEO, all the marketing tactics we use, I look at the two simple principles: demand capture and demand generation. How are we going to capture demand that already exists in the marketplace? So if you've got a service, if it's a service that is regularly used, there will be demand for that service. So how are we going to capture that already exists in the market space? Demand generation. So this is where the direct impact isn't always measurable, because 95% of your potential clients aren't actually in the market at that time when it comes to being recognized with your product. So what you need to do is generate that awareness so that when that 5% moves into the demand capture stage, that you're ready to actually capture that demand. That's the hardest thing for business owners to get across, because if we just spend all our time capturing demand that exists, quite often in areas of high saturation, we then compete on price. And the problem is, when all the businesses are just competing on price, there's only one place, and that's down. And when we start competing across the sphere of capture and generation, we can then start to build brand recognition. And when I say brand, I don't mean thinking Nestle or Coke. I'm just thinking local coffee chain. Can I say local coffee chains?
As long as you say Paddy and Scott's, yes.
Paddy and Scott's amazing. I do love Paddy and Scott's, but I was thinking Honey and Harvey, I think, is actually one of the best examples locally. Paddy is locally, the brand recognition of Honey and Harvey, they are known locally. They can charge a more premium price because the experience is already known in the consumer's mind when they're going to one of their Ipswich, Woodbridge, or their new location. And I think that's key when building a brand and that recognition. It's not just the game Coke can play. It's how you can stay in the mind of your customers locally.
Some really good stuff there, Connor. And I guess that's kind of like, even just, that's not all. I'm sure there's way more that you can share on that. We'll have to do a round two, I'm sure. But how does one go about this, Connor? Because you've mentioned that word brand, and you specifically talk about brand as a system, not just marketing. And that's of course where people get it so wrong on so many levels. How should businesses actually think about brand kind of beyond logos, colors, and, dare I say, social posts?
So when you look at brand as a system, I think of it as like the behavioral consistencies that someone comes to recognize your business with. Creatively, that's easy to explain with like the color associations, the branding side of things. We can explain that. But the behavioral consistencies also then come down to how a business operates. So when I book on your system, what is the user experience there? After a sale has occurred, what is the experience the user has there? What's the follow-up after a sales? How do we communicate? And this is where like the positioning, the messaging, the sales, operations, branding are all coming together for that behavioral consistency to actually build a brand. Let's go back to the Honey and Harvey example. I know that when I go into Honey and Harvey, I know that they're going to have amazing customer service. I know how the coffee is going to taste, the same as what the big brands do with Costa and Starbucks. I've already got a pre-notion of how the business behaves, which then means that I'm happy to just pay an extra 45p for a coffee compared to a smaller local chain. So yeah, that's how I see it. It's the behavioral consistencies that link all the operation sales together.
Yes.
Which, yeah.
No, I'm with you, Connor. Some sterling advice in there. Do you know, it's just something that I want to kind of fling in there as well from a social media perspective is so many people, you know, and I love it. They're like, right, Chris, we know what you do. Create strategy. Let's do something that's going to be, you know, impactful on social media. Get going and start posting. So we do loads of posts, and then I ask them about their system, their follow-up system, how they retain customers and how they convert audience into clients or customers. And there's little to no work still from certainly loads of the people that I speak to anyway, in terms of the DMs where the real conversations happen. When you make a sale, why not follow it up on social media via a DM, especially if you're a small business like Come On? It can make a huge difference. Is that something that you would agree with, Connor?
I would agree, because you're building up a relationship with that client, with that person. Fundamentally, you're building a relationship with a person, and that is what's so key, especially in the world of AI and automations. Like, you can automate it, and you can automate that, but if you're actually manually following up in a human way, that is so important for trust building and actually building them relationships that matter.
Yes.
I suppose one of the easiest examples of this is one of the hair salons I work with. I love working in the hair salon because from a social media perspective, everyone goes straight down that I'm going to create viral reels. They're going to get all these views. They're going to target the whole of the UK, even though they've got one salon in one location and they can only service X amount of people. And suddenly they're worrying about having 100k views. I'm like, you can't even serve 100,000 people there. But anyways, that's beside the point. How the actual user journey is when someone breaks trust, because you only change your hairdresser if your hairdresser's messed up or you've moved to a new location, right? So the first thing you do, and the data still points, you search on Google. So you've got your local map up, your Google business page. Then the user journey is they check the Instagram, they check Pinterest, they check the social proof of how that is anchored. They're not, from the data I've got from my client, they're not finding them on Instagram. They're using it as a social proof. And then they book on through the consistent stories of like a call to action, either through the story or a link in the bio. Do you know what I mean? That's the user journey. But I think a lot of, in the day of social, it's used as a content output to act as the search engine to capture it, when actually its job is further on the chain as social proof.
Yes.
That's one client there.
No, I get that, Connor. I'm so with you on that. So like people almost like mistake the roles of each segment, don't they? Of SEO, of PPC, of social, and they don't think about the funnel and all that stuff, which is why I'd implore that they speak to people like yourself. Connor, I was actually you kind of beat me to it. I was about to ask you about a kind of a story that you could maybe share about a client where they've kind of incorporated some of this wisdom that you're sharing, where you know you've created commercial impact for them in your world.
So the biggest one, I can't go to the direct figures, but it's actually with a care home group.
Okay.
Fundamentally, we didn't change the Google ad spend. We didn't change the fundamental output of them. Marketing is an output. The spend didn't change. What we did was we rechanged the website copy. We repositioned the brand with messaging that actually speaks to the right person. It was very typical corporate, like, I can't even think of an example now, but you know, like the care home tour, like care is, we care for your loved ones. We flipped the messaging and we actually made sure it resonated with the ideal persona. We then changed the Google ads. So the Google ads were targeting branded search terms. And you know, as a marketer, probably will know exactly what I'm about to say. The past agency was bidding 80 to 85% on branded search terms. So they were reporting back leads saying, oh, we've generated 40, 50 leads. And you're thinking to yourself, when you're looking at the actual data, you're like, No, you haven't, because you're not tracking it correctly, and you're bidding on search terms. So when one of our residents' daughters could be phoning up the care home saying, "I just want to check on mum," they were tracking that as a lead because they've clicked through the ad journey like that. And I was like, so it's actually then fixing the attribution to what
Wow.
marketing's actually doing as well. But anyway, so we concentrate on SEO, demand capture, because it's the easiest one. Like someone is directly searching for your service, the lowest friction marketing tool, in my opinion, when you get it right. Paid ads then supported that, and then social acted as the proof of concept when people were looking for more details. By doing that, we increased qualified leads by 23%
Brilliant.
Across the group, and that is really, really powerful. And obviously, in that industry, that's quite a big uplift.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And it's and actually with that world, it's like really important. Like it's really important
yeah,
that they have the right leads. And I mean, it's all important work, of course, but
yeah,
that one speaks true to me, especially my dear old nan has recently had to go into a care home, so that really hits home. And well done you for
yeah,
making that work for them, Connor.
yeah.
Tell me about the mistakes that people are making, Connor. You see time after time, you're tearing your hair out when it comes to building trust, when it comes to brand, when it comes to marketing. Maybe I'll make sure you kind of can stop after 5 minutes.
uh, I think the biggest one I see is the AI slop. I'll just say it as it is. It's the AI slop I see, and it's very hard sometimes to explain to someone, because I think the easiest way to think about it, you've probably covered this in the other podcasts as well. We outsource the stuff we don't enjoy, or the stuff that we don't necessarily understand, right?
With you.
So AI just produces, I guess, what we're prompting it. And when a business owner prompts it to what they think their understanding is, it probably will give them better content what they do themselves, but it's still not quite there. And then the confirmation bias kicks in, because then ChatGPT, whatever it is, it will go,
Yes.
it will go, oh, by the way, this is really, really good. Post
Yes.
it. You're the person. You're the best at this, and you're like, oh yeah, I am. And
Yes.
then you mindlessly hit post, when actually it's the same slop that we see
You
everywhere.
we let's do more, Connor, for sure. We should speak about that. I'm really pleased you brought that up. It's actually really timely as well, because in our last episode with 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗶𝗀 actually was a fantastic
Yeah,
episode, and
yeah,
we kind of touched on that a little bit.
yeah,
I'm seriously concerned that business owners are jumping on AI tools, not understanding that brilliant point about the fact that
yeah,
it's essentially been proven as to be bias. Of course, it's like, I'm not an AI denier. I'd always like to say that and have to repeat that time after time. I'm concerned that the prompts are so poor that they're getting slop out, right? And so I am totally with you, Connor. That's an important red flag to wave, that if you're going to use it, make sure that you use it properly.
because I did watch your last podcast, but there was one thing that I wrote in a LinkedIn article the other day, and it sounded a bit harsh, but I called it the de-evolution of intelligence. And it's a really serious article, but in the military, we broke down everything into acronyms, and everything was simple, super sweet. But that came from an in-depth understanding of the problems to simplify them.
Mm.
But if we reverse the situation where AI is understanding the concept behind it, and we're just merely replicating it into simple language that we can understand, I'm starting to notice that sometimes the operators behind the language don't actually understand the bigger
Mhm.
scope of the problem, because AI can simplify it into such simple terms that actually sometimes the people that are talking the most direct with the hooks and the clickbait stuff we see the click funnel marketers getting through all the time, some of them don't actually understand the more complicated sales business stuff that you need to grow the business, but they understand how to hook. And anyways, yeah.
No, Con, I absolutely concur. And we could go down an AI rabbit hole. But for my sanity, I'm not going to go there today. Any other brand building, trust building mistakes that you see on social media, for example, or any other digital marketing form that you think, oh God, please don't do that, folks?
I think with social media being too sales heavy, maybe
Mm.
that's my leniency. Sometimes with some people, I think, oh, you've just seen a really interesting post. I want to engage with that. Next thing you know, I've been sent a million different many chat automated emails. Every other post is buy this, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is my time to relax in the evening when I'm scrolling through my phone. I don't
Mm.
want to just be sold stuff constantly. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
So
Yes.
yeah.
No.
Obviously, I understand sales is an important tool. I've got nothing against sales, but it's the balance. The
Oh God,
balance.
I'm so with you. Yeah, I'm. By the way, I don't mind disagreeing. We will. I don't mind disagreeing with you, Connor. But you are speaking my language so well. So we're on the same wavelength, which is great. I actually did a post the other way, the other day, which was I am seeing a trend where everyone does that thing that you mentioned at the top of the show, where their whole strategy is viral reels. We're going to broad brush, jump on every trend and just go for vanity metrics, right? But
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
right though, Connor, like that's too far, as I've suggested, in my humble
yeah,
opinion. Feel free to
yeah,
disagree. But then on the other side of the coin, you're right. Other people are sell, 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 but they're not telling the story. They're not building the trust. They're not talking about the heritage. They're not talking about their
yeah,
values. They're not talking about how that's relevant to the customer. They're not focused on community, building that.
yeah,
They're not sharing, engaging. I could go on and on and on. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm so with you on
yeah,
that. How do
yeah.
people get sales right on social, in your opinion, Colin? Because this is something that I'm always intrigued to hear. I have an opinion, but I'd love to know yours. Because on the one side of the coin, we can just do something light and fluffy and never tell anyone to do anything, and then lo and behold, shock horror, they don't do anything. But you're right, there's also then a line where it's over it. So what is the balance there, Connor?
So that's actually a hard question. It's always the balance, actually. So do you use the 50-30-20 sort of framework on
I've
social
heard of
media?
it, yes.
I quite often stick to that. So how I do is like the content is building trust. Each post reel has a different role. Let's take the hairdresser example. I might do a hard sale post where I put the pricing list at the top of the feed, pin that. When someone's dropped out, I've got no issue with saying clients cancelled. Here's the link to our booking system, book an appointment. And also, if a week looks a bit less busy, saying like, oh, here's our spaces, click the link to book an appointment. Um, that's how I use it. It's a hard balance to get. And I think sometimes you just have to test. And it's all
Yes.
about,
Yes.
I think it's about testing. It's about testing what works. It's about, there's so many multitudes to this. It's a hard question.
I know, I
I've
know.
gone into over analyst mode now as well. I've done.
But that shows that Connor, that just shows that you're good at your job, right? And that's kind of a bit of a naughty thing to throw at you, really, because I'm always a bit concerned when marketers are so black and white and so like, oh no, it's just this way. You just do it like this.
Yeah.
You're so right. It is about balance. You're so right. It's always, it depends, of course, but I think that maybe the takeaway you would agree from this ramble between us is that it's important to not be too far on one end of the seesaw of the other, right? You have to tell someone to do something, but say it in the right way and have that healthy diet on social media where you're giving value, engaging content, building trust, creating community, creating connection, etc., rather than just ramming things down people's throats. Are we together on that?
Completely aligned. Yeah, completely aligned. And I think it's again, it depends the level of budget you've got. So take the care home group, for instance. With the community we build online, we can then create the retargeting from the website. So that's when we can bring in the paid influencers. So if we need to, the platform can be less salesy because we know if someone's engaged with the website and has gone to a certain page or downloaded our brochure, we can then use the retargeting ads to then potentially nurture that lead back into the funnel. So that's where, from a marketing perspective, we can use the different tools. So yeah.
No, I love that. Connor, that leads nicely on to asking you about your agency and how people can find you and do business with you, because it sounds like you treat what you do extremely seriously, and so you should. And I'm sure that there's many people watching this live and watching back, listening back, that'll be like, yeah, I'd love an armed forces guy that's super detailed and understands all this stuff to help me with my marketing. So how can people connect with you and do business with you, Connor?
So they can connect with me on LinkedIn, 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗶𝘀. Just search my name and I'll be there. And or come to my website at motionwavedigital.co.uk. I offer multiple sort of packages, if it's just a consulting package, or I also offer a fractional marketing package where you actually get a fractional marketing manager to come in, and over a couple of days or a day a week, I actually then manage the marketing output of your business, which I find is incredibly handy when it comes to managing agencies. I've got nothing against the agency model whatsoever. I think there's some brilliant agencies right there. I'm technically running an agency myself, but sometimes, especially for the smaller businesses, if you don't have someone who understands the marketing to read the data, sometimes they can push the boat a bit, and because they are a business at the end of the day. But when you can actually work with an agency a bit closer, with someone who understands what they're telling and what they're saying, and link it back to the business, that's where the fractional marketing sort of comes in. And yeah, then obviously we work with amazing people like yourself or other freelancers, and we connect that network and put the right person in to deliver the right tactics. So yeah,
Connor, I think that is brilliant, and I'm so pleased that you're doing that work. I'm so pleased you're steering people in the right direction, and you operate how you operate. Kudos to you, sir. Thank you so much for your time and sharing so much wisdom in such a small space of time. We must do another one. Thank you, Connor.
Cheers. Thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much to everyone watching live, watching back, listening back. Let us know what you thought of this episode of A Coffee with Chris. And hey, why not get involved in the comments? Ask Connor a question. I'm sure he'll get back to you, and we'll help you with anything social media, marketing strategy, and beyond. If you've enjoyed this episode as well, give it a thumbs up on YouTube and share this in one of your work Slack channels, etc. I'm always happy to see the podcast grow week on week. I will see you on that note this time next week for another episode of A Coffee with Chris.